Of all the places you could have been this afternoon, we really appreciate that you chose to spend time here and come along to this carol service, and we hope you really, really enjoy it. I love this, but I get this I need to pull it up every year, and I'm afraid that it's all going to come. If I pull this up, I'm afraid every light might come down in the building, so maybe I'll just kind of try and do that a little. But I'm excited to start our Advent season today. And in all of our Christmas services, we're going to be thinking about the record of this first Christmas from the Gospel of Luke. There are 4 accounts of the life of Jesus that you get in the Bible, and we're going to be thinking from Luke's Gospel. And we're going to start today with the passage that Vee just read for us, with the promise that Mary receives from the angel Gabriel. This is, historically, the church has called this the Annunciation, which very simply means announcement, the announcement. And Mary gets an announcement, she gets a message from God, which actually is what an angel is. An angel is a messenger. The word angel means messenger, it can translate as messenger. So this angel comes to Mary with a message, and so my question really for us this afternoon is, well, what is it? What is the message? What is this announcement? And I suppose, as crucially, why does it matter? Why does it matter for us today, with all the things that we're facing, with everything that we brought into this time this afternoon? What is this message? Well, here's what I want to suggest. If you understand this message, you will understand Christmas. And if you understand Christmas, you'll understand Christianity. And in understanding Christianity, it can bring a change, a hope, a power into your life unlike anything else. And I'm excited to get to share that with you this afternoon. Very simple. I want to just look at 2 things. I want to look at the message and then just see how we respond to the message. So first of all, then, the message is a really famous message. It is that Mary would have a baby, that she would conceive a child with her by the power of God. But I think it's so well known that we probably miss something of the significance of the language that Gabriel uses to share with her. Can I read it to you again? Listen to verse 31. Behold, says Gabriel, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. He will be great, and he will be called Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give to him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end. Now, most of that is probably lost on us in terms of its significance, but for a Jewish person like Mary, it was massively significant. It was loaded with meaning, because Gabriel uses language that's straight out of the Hebrew Bible, what we would call the Old Testament. Specifically, and we began our gathering this afternoon by reading from this part, language from the prophet Isaiah. Hundreds of years before these events, and Mary would have known the passage that Gabriel kind of alludes to, that he references. It's from Isaiah chapter 9, and the language is the same. And there, just like Tom said, if you go back to Isaiah, you find an incredibly unique picture. You see that God's people have turned away from him, that they've turned from him, and judgment has come. It's pictured like a black storm that is there on the horizon, about to break over. There is war, there is famine. And yet this is what's significant in the description. Even in the midst of such darkness, a vivid light is promised. A time that will come where things will change. And Isaiah uses this really powerful image. Let me just refresh your memory from what we heard at the beginning of our gathering. Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 2, it says, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwell in a land of deep darkness, on them a light has shined." Do you hear that? Light is about to come into this darkness. It's about to penetrate and pierce the darkness. And if you read on through Isaiah, you find that the promise is that God is going to end the oppression. That he's going to bring peace, he's going to bring joy, he's going to bring rescue, he's going to bring hope. And so I suppose the question that follows is, well, how will he do that? How is he going to do that? How will he end the oppression? How will he bring the joy? Will he send another army? Will it be fireballs? Will it be earthquakes? No, here is a surprise, and it really is a surprise. All of it will happen through a baby. Through a baby. This is what Isaiah goes on to say, "For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given. The government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. At the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end. On the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this." I mean, that is quite a promise, isn't it? That all that hope rests upon a baby. But there is more, because those titles, did you hear them? All of those titles were reserved only for God. They were marked titles of divinity. And so the promise is, you see, that not only would this baby be a good ruler, a wise leader, a visionary teacher, yeah, all of those things, but more, that they would come as the divine one. Isaiah made a declaration just a couple of chapters before this one, where he said exactly that. The promise in Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 14 was that therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin will conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Emmanuel, which means God with us. Now, if you come back to our passage now and think again about the message of Gabriel, do you now hear the echoes? The echoes in what Gabriel shares as he appears to Mary. What exactly does he promise Mary? What does he say to her? Well, if you look back in Luke 1 and verse 35, here is what Gabriel says: "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore the child to be born will be called Holy, the Son of God." It's the same promise. It's the same as Isaiah. A virgin will give birth, a baby will be born, who will be God with us. Gabriel basically said, Mary, the promise that you cherished for so long, the promise that your people have cherished for so long, the promise actually that the world has been waiting for, the baby you promised, the baby's coming, and you're going to give birth to him. I mean, that is an incredible message for her to hear. So much that we could say, but too much we could say. But let me just draw out one thing. Because what you have here is actually the centre, it's right at the centre of Christianity. That God descends into the world. That God takes on a human body. And that's so significant. But let me highlight one thing. Gabriel twice refers to God as the Most High. Refers to God as the Most High. The message is that God Most High, in Gabriel's message, will come down low. The Most High will become the Most Low. Do you hear what's being said? We're being told that God, the uncreated power that sustains the stars, will become a baby. The high becoming low. Do you know what we're getting to see here? We're getting an insight into the character of God. This passage tells us that what makes God the Most High is that he was able to become most low. It's God's very greatness that means he can become low. See, we're being shown what God is like. The Christian writer, C.S. Lewis, he talks about this. And he says there's all kinds of things that we really struggle with when it comes to the virgin birth, about God becoming man. But he says, listen, in all of your questions, don't miss this one thing. Let me quote him. He says, the power of the higher, insofar as it's truly higher, can come down to include the less. Everywhere the great enters the little, its power to do so is almost a test of its greatness. I love that. Lewis said, do you want to see just how great God is? You want to see what this God is like? Then look no further than this. That the Most High was willing to become the Most Low. Now you may ask, well, why? I mean, this seems like a huge amount of trouble to go to. Why on earth was it needed? Well, a gift will sometimes tell you something. Have you ever had that slightly uncomfortable experience where somebody gives you a gift, and it is a gift, but it's a message. It's wrapped up, but it's really a critique, saying, here is something that you really can do with. So someone gives you a nice watch. You say, oh, thank you so much. That's really kind. Hold on. You keep telling me I'm late. Is there anything to do with that? Or if someone gives you a nice leather planner, you say, what a lovely gift. Oh, hold on. You say I'm disorganised? What's the message here? And I suppose you can kind of take that further and further. Someone buys you deodorant or breath mints or a gym membership or whatever it might be. But there is no way to accept certain gifts without admitting something about yourself. Now you can look at Christmas and think, how sweet, how nice. God would give such a lovely gift, that God would send Jesus into the world. But do you know what that means? That God would become a baby, that God would empty himself of power, that God would eventually empty himself even of life. We're being told at Christmas that things are far worse than we could imagine. That the darkness is so great that nothing less than Jesus coming into the world can save us. Do you remember all of Isaiah's language? The people that Isaiah spoke to caught in darkness, gloom, oppression of an occupying force. They needed a rescuer. They needed a saviour. And the New Testament picks up on all those same pictures, all those same images of oppression and darkness, but turns them into metaphors of the way that sin holds power over each and every single one of us. Now, when I say sin, most of you will misunderstand what Christians mean by that. But sin is our desire to be like God, to wrestle him from where he should be. So sin means, it means we curve in on ourselves. We make everything kind of angle back towards us. And as we do that, we are then increasingly bent more and more out of the shape that we were made to be. So sin is not so much the things that we do, it's who we are. It's bred into the bone. It's kind of deep down into who we are, and it means we're trapped. We're held in its grip. To use Isaiah's language, we're trapped in darkness, and we need light. We need rescue. And now here's what Gabriel comes and says. There is a baby coming. He's about to arrive, and he will be called Jesus. Which is more than just Gabriel saying, hey, do you know, it's a lovely name. It's a really nice name. I think you should probably choose that one. No, his name means Saviour. That's what Jesus means. It means rescuer. The only way the world could be rescued is if one will come down to stand in the breach between us and God. And the only way that we can be free from our darkness is by Jesus. Jesus comes into the world to experience the darkness of the world, the darkness of our sin, so we can experience the light of his grace. But you've got to start by recognizing the darkness. My favourite Christmas song is by Sufjan Stevens. And if you know Sufjan Stevens a lot, he's obsessed with Christmas. He's done loads and loads of Christmas songs. And my favourite Christmas song is called The Christmas Unicorn. And it starts incredibly festive. It starts like a fireside Christmas classic. And then it just morphs into this kind of 7-8 minute sprawling electronic mashup. And it ends as a cover of a Joy Division song. If you've never heard of Joy Division, let me just say this. Nobody puts Joy Division on a Christmas playlist. Ever. I don't think anybody ever has. But here's this Christmas song, and it ends on one of the most depressing Joy Division songs, which is Love Will Tear Us Apart. And so you get this Christmas song that kind of ends in this terrible chorus about heartbreak and loss and despair. And it's at that point that my family, to a person, pleaded with me to switch it off. This is the best bit. But here's why I love it. Here is why I love it. It's because I think it best captures Christmas from the Bible's point of view. What do I mean? Because Christmas is about dealing with darkness. It is about confronting the darkness. Christmas arrives in the darkness, and that is the best news that you can hear, because we live in a world where darkness is all around us, where good things get swallowed up by bad things, where we see hopes disappear and vanish, where love really does tear us apart. But if you're willing to look hard enough, if you're willing to look deeply enough, be honest enough, to confront the darkness that is not just out there but is within here, to recognise sin, that's when you can begin to see the light. But this is hard. I know it's hard, but it's key to the message. We're not just a bit broken. We don't just need a bit of help. We need salvation. And the good news is that God has done the most radically loving thing that anyone could do. He sent Jesus. See, that is the message. So how do you respond? How do you respond? We have four kids. I have sat through a lot of school activities. So much so that I have a league table of them in my head. And my favourite ever, I'm not going to say which child anymore, but it was called the Wrigley Nativity. Teachers, you must have, I've actually seen it more than once. I know you repeat stuff. And this was a nativity I've seen kind of repeated a couple of times. But yeah, it's called the Wrigley Nativity, and there's a song in it that goes, it's the Wrigley Nativity, it's the Wrigley Nativity. Somehow, you just got to move. And then the kids do a wiggly dance, which Luke doesn't record. I have to be honest with you. It's not that. But I sat down and I thought about it, trying to not let my mind wander from the nativity. But I thought, that is so simple, but it captures something of the truth of Christmas as it's recorded in the Bible. Because if you've really heard this message, you've got to do something. It requires a response. It requires a movement. And that's exactly what you see in Mary. You actually see a few responses. Let me just pull out a couple and then we'll finish. Surprisingly, it begins with discomfort, actually, is the first response. See, far from this being a comfortable message, it brings disturbance to Mary. It disrupts her life. Do you hear what we're told? Verse 28, she gets the message. And the angel says, greetings, our favoured one, the Lord is with you. But listen to what we read about Mary. She was greatly troubled at the saying. And she tried to discern what sort of greeting this might be. We're told she's greatly troubled. You don't get that phrase anywhere else in the whole of the New Testament. It means confusion. It means to be completely perplexed by something. Now you might say, well, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? Just think about what she's being told. It's a message that she as a virgin would be with a child, which is a hard thing for anybody to wrap their heads around, of course. But again, we miss something of the significance of this in her culture. The news that she was pregnant without being married in this culture was devastating. She would have been shamed in her society, humiliated, exiled even. So at that level you say, well, of course she's disturbed by that. But do you know what we're told? We're told that she's greatly troubled before she gets that part of the message. Do you notice that? She's greatly distressed before she gets that news. It's actually the fact that Gabriel shows up and greets her that disturbs her. Now you say, well, why would that be? Why would a greeting cause so many issues? Well, I think this at least is part of it. There is a sense in which it is always easier to be left alone. You see, this is a message that comes from God. This is the centre of the Christian message. We call it the good news, the gospel, and it will always stir the heart. It will always bring a disturbance if you've really understood it, a kind of, uh-oh, kind of response. Because we realise it has to do with us. That it does require us to do something. Here's how one old preacher put it. He said that whenever the feeblest ray of divine glory bursts upon us, we cannot avoid being alarmed. See, God's presence, even if it comes as a tiny, tiny flicker, it will disturb. And this news for Mary, for us, it really is good news. It tastes like honey, but you know what it does? It stirs up a hive in the soul. And when it does, the danger is to want to shut it down, to flee away from it, to shut yourself off for it. I wonder if for some of you, this is maybe something you're willing to do. Again, you're so thankful that you're willing to come to a carol service. But maybe you've done it in the past where you've heard part of this message and you just thought, no, I don't like what it's making this do. I've had enough of this now. I'll take some of the carols, but I don't want to go any further. Maybe you're doing it even now. Maybe there's a sense even now you feel that, hold on, this is just getting a bit too close. But listen, let me encourage you to push past the discomfort, will you? Hold on to this. You've got to go beyond it. That's what Mary does. She moves beyond it. And it's only if you move beyond it that you will find the change. See, there was a part in Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. It was interesting. So if you know me, I love A Christmas Carol. I absolutely adore it. And I made a mental note about Alex, who's another one of the leaders, where he spoke earlier this year, and he said he really doesn't like A Christmas Carol. I was going to give it as a rest as an illustration this year, but then I thought, no, do you know what? I think for his sake, as much as anybody else, I should just bust out another illustration. So, in A Christmas Carol, particularly the Muppet version of Alex, which is a wonderful rendition, an absolutely fantastic one, you find that there is a part where Scrooge, he meets the ghost of Christmas present, joyful giant, and he hears him before he sees him. And Scrooge hovers on the outside of the room. You can see light coming in up this room. You can hear this voice. He can smell all kinds of wonderful smells, but he doesn't know how all of it is going to turn out. He just doesn't know. Until the ghost comes, the ghost issues an invite. The ghost, again, in the Muppets version is wonderful. He says, "Come in and know me better, man." That's the invite. And with that, Scrooge enters in. He pushes beyond the discomfort. And he actually gets through the door. And it's only because he gets through the door that all the wonderful things that follow will happen. That all the change, all of the result, all of the fantastic things that turns Ebenezer Scrooge into the kind-hearted, wonderful, transformed man that he is at the end, only happens because he's willing to push through discomfort, to get in and know that goes better. Listen, you've got to do the same with the Christmas message. You cannot stay by the door. Even if this message perplexes you, even if it confuses you, even if it alarms you, keep moving. Keep moving. Because look at what's next for Mary. She thinks. There's thought involved here. See, the way to move beyond this is to think. To enter further into this, you've got to think about the message. Now, I wonder if for some of you that comes as a surprise. But Christianity is an invite to think. In fact, the author, Luke, he is a writer for the skeptics. Because at the very beginning of his book, he is writing to the person, probably his patron or the person who's kind of sponsoring him, or kind of has asked him to record things. And he summarises why he wants to write this. And he says, I'm going to collect as many eyewitness accounts of the life of Jesus, the events that I possibly can, and I'm going to collect them all together. And here he says, do you know why? Here's what Luke says, Luke 1, chapter 4. Luke chapter 1, verse 4. That you may have certainty concerning the things that you have been taught. Luke begins. He begins by saying, I'm writing all of this, you know why? So you, all of my readers, anyone who reads this in the future, can have certainty about the things that they're reading. In other words, he says, of course you must think. It's inconceivable to Luke as he writes this that you're not going to read it and think about it. And Mary's words encourage this too. See, when it says in verse 29, Mary's discerning, she's trying to discern what kind of greeting it is. It uses a really interesting word that basically means to make account for something. Literally it says Mary weighed up the different possible reasons for what just happened. We're being told Mary's thinking. She says, how do I account for all of this that's going on? What is it? Is it a hallucination? Is it real? Is it a dream? What's happening? See, the message of Jesus, the Christian message, doesn't require you to switch up your brain. Faith is not the opposite of reason. It is an invite to think, to weigh this up, to see if the message fits with reality. But let me tell you, when you do that, don't be surprised if it leads you to surprise. Okay, don't be surprised by the surprise. What do I mean? You may very well, the more you think about it, find yourself saying, well, this just seems impossible. But that's what Mary said. Mary starts to think. She begins to weigh everything up. In verse 34, she says to the angel, how will this be, since I'm a virgin? The first time she hears the message, she says, well, how on earth is this going to happen? She's saying this seems impossible. Mary is wonderful because she's being honest and transparent. And you know what? If you've never found the Christian message incredible, you're probably not listening. If you've never found the Christian message, if a person doesn't find the gospel impossible at first, you've probably never come to grips with it. You may come this afternoon and think, do you know, I'm happy with the surface level Christmas stuff, but really, do you believe this? angelic visitations, a virgin birth, God becoming a human being. That strange stretches credibility. But don't you see? That's the point. That's the point. We're not supposed to come away from this. Nobody is supposed to come away from this just saying, nah, okay. That isn't how the message is supposed to, that's not supposed to be the response. We're supposed to come away saying this is extraordinary. The point is, this isn't ordinary. The point is, this is extraordinary. And that's Mary. But in it, she has an honesty. She's sincere. She begins to say to God, I don't understand this. And my suggestion to you is do the same. Do what Mary did. She still has all sorts of questions you might too, but she still thinks about them, and she even goes to God with them. She communicates with his messenger with them. She's willing to admit doubt. She's willing to say, I don't understand. That's the way to do it. Discomfort, thought, and let me finish with this. She ends on trust. She gets to a place of trust. See how the passage finishes, verse 38. Mary said, Behold, I am the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. I realise what Mary's saying. Again, in this traditional culture, she is saying, may I be disgraced. If that's what you want, I accept it. Again, it's a staggering thing to say. As an unmarried young single mother, she's basically saying, I am willing to be on the edge of poverty, the margins of society for the rest of my life. But still, she says to God, let it be. She is saying, I see what's going on, and God, I throw myself over into your power. I give myself to you unconditionally. You say, how can she do that? With everything that meant, how can she do it? Here is how. Because she knows the God behind this, and she believes he can be trusted. Where God is at work, nothing is the same. Gabriel keeps on saying all of this happens because of God. Verse 35, by the power of the Most High. And as incredible as all of this seems, verse 37, nothing is impossible with God. Mary gets to such a place of trust because she knows who she's trusting. She trusts in who God is. Remember, he is the Most High, but he is the one willing to become low, and that for him impossible is nothing. So as you approach Christmas this year, maybe you say, what do I do with this then? Really, what from right from this point, how do I get this? How do I get what Mary has? The answer is you receive grace just like Mary did. You receive the gift that Mary was offered. That's what verse 30 is all about. The angel Gabriel says, don't be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. Finding favor actually translates as Mary has found grace from God. She's found grace. Grace is the Bible word meaning a gift. This is God giving her what she didn't deserve. You know, there are really two understandings of Christianity. One is that Christianity is all about us working to be good enough to please God, to get into his good books. It's about us searching and seeking and finding him. But the other is that this is really about God finding us, and that his rescue comes as a gift. It comes as grace. Now, if it's about you finding God, then we've already said that leaves us in a place where there is little hope. Because we're stuck in sin. We're lost in the darkness, remember? We need rescue. But if this is a message that God finds us, that the initiative is his, that brings a wonderful sense of relief, a hope of rescue, of light dawning into the midst of your darkness. Today, the darkness that you face. And you need to do the same that Mary did to receive it, that's all. Receive the grace. To believe that there is a power of God that can operate from the outside in. Ask God to bring you that life. That's all you need to do. Ask him. Receive that gift. It's all any one of us needs. And you know how it will end? And it will end in this way. Joy. Joy. Lasting, unending joy. Eventually, always with God there is joy. See, read on and you'll find next the Magnificat. The Magnificat is Mary's song of thanksgiving and joy. That's what you find next. Mary bursts out with a song of uncontained joy. If this Christmas you understand the same message, if this Christmas you let it get down into the center of who you are, if this Christmas you will receive the grace of Jesus, then let me tell you, it will unleash the joy of heaven into your heart. Let me pray. How silently the wondrous gift is given. So God imparts to human hearts the blessing of his heaven. No ear may hear his coming, but in this world of sin, where meek souls will receive him still, the dear Christ enters in. Father, I want to thank you for such an incredible message. A message that, whilst it seems to strain at every sense of what we believe is possible, a message that if we will let it push us beyond the discomfort, can lead us to a place of unending joy. Jesus, thank you for the staggering news of Christmas, that you, the Most High, are willing to become way. And I pray that maybe this Christmas, for the very first time, maybe this day, for the first time, someone would understand what it is to receive your light in the midst of darkness. Give us the courage to be honest enough about the darkness that is out there and in us too. But give us the perseverance, the grace to receive the only gift that can deal with the darkness. And Father, if there are those with questions, I pray that they would see this as an invite to explore, an invite to ask questions, an invite to talk, an invite above everything else to come to you. To come to you with doubts, to come to you with confusion, but to come to you in honesty and sincerity. Well, thank you for the promise that in Jesus, any time that door is knocked upon, it will be opened. I pray this happening, it would be a time of real joy. Not just the good joy that we receive all around us in the parties and gifts and the fun. That is a beautiful thing. But the true, deep, everlasting joy that Jesus is to be found in you and you alone.